this day, he would often, or when he was glorifying Saraswatī Ṭhākur in general, he would speak about Saraswatī Ṭhākur not just in a historical sense, but he would speak about how, like the current of Saraswatī Ṭhākur is living and moving today through all such sincere souls as yourselves. Like one time in Navadvip, he made this very charming expression. He said, "You are all the genes, like biological genes of Saraswatī Ṭhākur." And he would speak about like this wave, this movement of Śrīla Saraswatī Ṭhākur as still moving throughout this world. This flow, this divine flow, this wave of Hari Sankirtan, that is still continuing to this day. From Śrīla Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswatī Ṭhākur and then also his disciples, right? Śrīla A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada. From him, it was with that, feeling that order, or that desire of Saraswatī Ṭhākur, because it was Saraswatī Ṭhākur's desire for this movement to go all over the world. And that's how Śrīla Swami Maharaj Prabhupada, 69 years old, right?
Feeling this like pushing on his heart. Oh, my Guru Maharaj has this desire, and nobody has fulfilled it yet. So he had some expression. He said, even in my old age, I'm going out to fulfill his desire. With that pressing on Śrīla Swami Maharaj's heart, and then also, of course, from Śrīla Saraswatī Ṭhākur's disciple, Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj, right? And from Śrīla Bhakti Dakshak Śrīdhar Dev Goswami, our Param Guru, our grandfather Guru, this nectarian flow of the highest siddhanta, the highest conclusions of devotion, they have spread throughout this world. Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj, he did not travel the world, but we can say the world came to him. He made some comment, because actually Saraswatī Ṭhākur wanted Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj to travel to the West. But Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj, for different reasons, he wasn't able to do that. And he made one comment in his later years, from this referring to the Bible, right? If Muhammad cannot go to the mountain, then the mountain will go to Muhammad, right? And then through the talks of Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj, right, recorded by Bhakti Siddhir Goswami, then these very high, fine teachings, they are coming into this world. So everything has come from Śrīla Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswatī Ṭhākur. He is a great revolutionary in this world. And we can say he has created a safe space within which we can practice Krishna consciousness in the modern age. He's given us some direction, right? Because otherwise things are a jungle, right? Actually, we don't know who is who, what is what. We don't know who's going the right way, who's going the wrong way. We don't know. But we know what Saraswatī Ṭhākur, he gave us a particular direction. He gave us a particular standard of practice. And so we feel we have some shelter within that. And he made so much sacrifice, actually, in order to give us that shelter. Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj made one comment like, he shed so many gallons of blood, for our sake, to try to give us what is pure Krishna consciousness. And Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj, he wrote, several beautiful compositions glorifying Saraswatī Ṭhākur. And one of them is very wonderful. Nikila Bhuvana Maya, Chinna Vichina Karchi, Bahuda Bahula Mrigya, Mukti Mahanta Dachi, Shiti Liti Vidi Ragaraja Vadesha Dani, Vilasatu Hriddhi Nityam, Bhakti Siddhanta Vani. And it's like 4 lines, very short, but in a very concise way, it is describing the whole character of Saraswatī Ṭhākur. And Śrīla Śrīdhar Maharaj, he made one comment that he said, I've captured him in this composition. I've captured my Guru Maharaj in a cage of poetry, he said, like that. I've captured him in a cage of poetry. And then he said, like a Royal Bengal tiger. Captured him in this. And he says, so this Nikila Bhuvana Maya Chinna Vichina Karchi. It describes, we could say, like 3 stages, 3 phases of Saraswatī Ṭhākur's movement in this world, right? That with his first step, Nikila Bhuvanamaya Chinna Vichinna Karchi, means like he slashed to pieces the whole plane of illusion, right? Because we hear that, so many 100 years after Mahaprabhu's presence in this world, then, Mahaprabhu's movement had fallen into degradation, right? There was so much contamination, there was so much pollution within the lineage, and so much, malpractices, lower practices, no pure representation. And so, like we heard from our Gurudev, many persons, they're chanting the holy name, calling themselves followers of Mahaprabhu, but there was no conception of pure practices, clean practices. And some persons, they may be chanting the name, but they're having like a ganja party at the same time. So this idea of the pure name, right, and following some pure lifestyle, this was not understood. And so Srila Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākur, he started that cleansing process. And then Srila Saraswatī Ṭhākur, he then began like a full-scale revolution. In that song we sang in the beginning, some of you weren't here, but there's this beautiful line our Gurudev liked very much. It's describing Ṭhākur Bhaktivino, Shri Gauranga Parishad, Ṭhākur Bhaktivino, Dina Hina Patitera Bandhu, Ani Lena Avanite, is saying, describing how Srila Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākur, he called Saraswatī Ṭhākur into this world. Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākur, he started the groundwork. But he needed a strong revolutionary to come and create a wholesale revolution. And so he prayed, Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākur prayed to the Lord, oh please send someone. Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākur, he was a government magistrate, he was very highly positioned. He was well positioned to represent the dignity of Krishna consciousness, of Mahaprabhu's line. And so he's giving many talks, writing many books, but he also needed someone to really create, as I said, a wholesale revolution. And so he prayed to the Lord, please send someone. Please send someone. Actually, our Gurudev, he made this very nice comparison to Vyasadeva, right? Because Vyasadeva, he compiled all of the scriptures. And then he wrote Srimad Bhagavatam, right? He had, Vyasadeva, he received this chastisement from Narada, from his guru, saying that, you've given all of this knowledge, but it's very mixed. You need to show what is the clear path, what is the clear way. You need to give the teachings of Krishna Bhakti, devotion to Krishna as the highest. So he gave that chastisement to Vyasadeva, and then Vyasadeva came to write Srimad Bhagavatam, which is describing, pure religion and wholesale life of surrender to Sri Krishna. But Vyasadeva also felt, I'm not the person to present this to the world. I'm giving the information, but I'm not the right person to give this. People won't listen to me if I give it. Because Vyasadeva, he had some household life, he had some children, and he's telling about Radha Krishna and their Prakrita Leela and the gopis. People, they won't take it seriously if I say it. So I need somebody else. And then Shukadeva came, right? And Shukadeva, he's fully in Brahma Gyan and spiritual consciousness. He's like so detached from this world. He's walking naked everywhere, right? And so then he gave that job, like Vyasadeva gave the scripture, but then he gave to Shukadeva the job of presenting it to the world. And so also Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākur, right? He gave the scripture, he started the groundwork, but then he put Saraswatī Ṭhākur on the mission of actually bringing this out to the world in a real manifest, full-fledged way. This is Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswatī Ṭhākur. And so this first line, Nikila Bhuvanamaya Chinna Vichinna Karji, he slashed to pieces the whole plane of illusion, this mixing of devotion with our selfish, mundane enjoyments. And then Vibhuda Bahula Mrigya Mukti Mahanta Datri, this second line, saying that he put an end to the mad search of the scholars after liberation. That because these are generally the two tendencies, right? For, bhukti and mukti, right? For exploitation, enjoyment, selfishness, and then on the other side, renunciation. So he put an end to that plane of exploitation, then he also put an end to that plane of renunciation. That, we will just renounce the world, right? That we will just aspire for, liberation without any conception of devotion, And we can also say, right, that, for many persons it was, this is the thing with the practice of devotion, right? Because in many ways, a life of devotion, it is paralleling, it is looking the same as an ordinary life in this world, right? And so for that reason, there's a tendency for the scholarly section, they run to the Gyan section. They run to renunciation, right? When really our conception is yukta vairagya, right? That we don't renounce and we don't exploit, but we properly engage, right? That we properly engage everything. We're not afraid of all the wonderful things in this world, right? But we're not taking it for our own enjoyment, but we are properly engaging it. This is the conception of devotion. And so Saraswatī Ṭhākur showed what is the dignity of a life of devotion. Right? So he put an end to the search of the scholars for liberation. And then there's a third phase to, or maybe I'll also backtrack a little, just to illustrate what I just said. There was one famous line of Saraswatī Ṭhākur, and we have it above our Nat Mandir, Navadvip. So Prabhu, you tell us, what is that shloka then? The shloka in Navadvip and the Nat Mandir? Okay, that's the original one. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, actually Gurudev, he adjusted that. He has it written in a different way. But yeah, that's the original verse. This was written by Saraswatī Ṭhākur when they opened the Bagh Bazar Gaudiya Math in Calcutta. He wrote this, it was like this huge, I saw a newspaper article, Lavanya in London. She found it and she shared it on Facebook once. It was like a huge event in Calcutta. There was like this huge, because they had the deities in a rented house in Calcutta. And then they acquired this permanent property. And so they moved the deities from the rented house to the new permanent place. And they had this huge procession in the city of Calcutta. Like thousands of people came. It was recorded in the newspapers. They're carrying the deity. I mean, what an amazing thing to witness, right? And for that occasion, Srila Saraswatī Ṭhākur, he composed this very special verse, which Prabhu mentioned. This Pujala Ragapata Gaurava Bange, Matala Sarujana Vishayarange. It's actually a bewildering verse, and that's why our Gurudev, he changed it. Oh, don't sit on the coals here. You have a mat there. That our Gurudev actually changed it, and what's on our temple is a little different, because it's very bewildering. What he says, this Pujala Ragapat Gaur, that in a posture of respect, we are worshipping the Ragapat, the plane of spontaneous free devotion. And then this line, like, okay. And then the next line, Matala Sarujana Vishayarange. It says that the sadhus, right, the devotees, the saints, saintly persons, they are matala, madly, Vishayarange, means they are madly engaging with all the sense objects of this world. Vishaya means like in things of enjoyment in this world. Normally, like the word Vishayi means an enjoyer, and it's normally used in a derogatory way. And Vishai means like the objects of the senses. So he's saying in this line that the sadhus are madly using all the sense objects of this world, and it's very like puzzling. And that for that reason, our Gurudev actually adjusted it with permission from Srila Śrīla Maharaj. And so the line that we have in our temple is Matala Harijana Kirtana Range. Instead of madly engaging with the sense objects of this world, it says madly engaging in kirtan. So why did Saraswatī Ṭhākur make that line, because he's saying, like, he's speaking of this principle of yukta vairagya, right? That as you're saying, right, we don't reject, but we're engaging everything in the service of Krishna. So we're not afraid, you know. We are not afraid of enjoyment. We are not afraid of, we're not afraid of all the wonderful things of this world. We're not afraid of beauty. We're not afraid of pleasure. We're not afraid of chocolate cake. We're not afraid of beautiful men, beautiful women. But we're seeing everything in connection with Krishna. This is the idea. So what Saraswatī Ṭhākur did was very revolutionary, because he was not, you know, the stereotype of a sadhu was that they'll live very quietly like a Babaji. They'll live in Vrindavan under a tree, and they have a cup of a water pot, and they eat some dried chapatis, and this was the stereotype of a sadhu, right? But Saraswatī Ṭhākur is going into Vrindavan, suited and booted in a big fancy motor car in the 1930s. Right? That we can't actually understand how shocking that was. We heard one of his disciples, some of his disciples, they couldn't understand. Some of his disciples were using horse and cart, like for going preaching. Even that was like, what? Gurudev mentioned they couldn't understand that. That was like rebel. They're meant to go barefoot, walking everywhere. And they're using horse and cart for preaching. What is this? Yeah, Gurudev talked about that. They're like, there was one disciple, he told Śrīla Sridhar, I can't understand my Guru Maharaj. He was a disciple of Saraswatī. I said, I'm very unfortunate. I cannot understand my Guru Maharaj, why his preaching mission is like this. Right? So horse and cart was, that was revolutionary. What to speak of a motor car? Like this is, so Saraswatī Ṭhākur, and then Saraswatī Ṭhākur is building these temples with marble. Someone asked Saraswatī Ṭhākur, so what do you think about modern technology? Only we should use technology, nobody else. They thought he might say, this is all Maya, and we should avoid everything. No, we're using iPads, we're using phones, we're using airplanes, we're using cameras. We're using it in the service of Krishna, right? So this was Saraswatī Ṭhākur's idea, like we're opening this new temple, and we're not rejecting the world, but we're using everything in the service of Krishna. Right? So this was very, very central to Saraswatī Ṭhākur's preaching movement. And on the front cover of every edition of his monthly magazine, he had like 4 or 5 regular magazines, right? Not just 1 or 2. He had a monthly one, he had a weekly one, he had a daily one. I saw one copy. Nadia Prakash was he had a daily newspaper. Like this is the scope of Saraswatī Ṭhākur's preaching mission. But on the front cover of the Gaudiya, that was like his main magazine, he published on the front cover of every edition this principle of yukta vairagya, proper renunciation. This anasaktasya vishayan yatarham upayunjata nirbandha krishna sambandhe yukta vairagyam uchate. That this is our principle. We are internally detached from everything in the world, but we are seeing, like in a personal way, we are detached. But we're seeing it all, nirbandha krishna sambandhe, in relationship with Krishna, in connection with Krishna. Here is something very beautiful. This can be used in Krishna's service, not for my enjoyment. This is the principle. So this is very central to the mission of Saraswatī Ṭhākur. And then, so we'll go through that verse, Nikila Bhuvanamaya Chinna Vichina Kartri. The whole plane of enjoyment, exploitation, he cut to pieces. And then, Bahula Mrigya Mukti, he put an end to the plane of renunciation, the search for liberation. And then this is another point, interesting point, the third point here. Because then once you come to the practice of devotion, there are 2 types of devotion, right? There's Vidhi Marg and there's Raga Marg. You've been able to get through the whole obstacle course. You got through the plane of Maya and karma and all this. exploitation. You got through that, you passed that test. Then you get to the plane of liberation, renunciation. You got through that too. You passed there too. Now what's the next challenge, right? Then you come to the plane of devotion. There are two lines of devotion. One is vidhi marg. Vidhi marg means very regulated, restricted, scripturally based devotion. That is very concerned with the rules and regulations, ritual, also a lot of awe, reverence, majesty, Vaikuntha mood, right? And then there's another line, Ragamarg, the line of free, spontaneous devotion. And so in that line, that first verse we mentioned, the Pujala Ragapad Gorva Mange, that actually is describing very concisely how do we stand here. That our ideal is Ragamarg, right? We worship Ragamarg, but Gaurava Bhange in a posture of respect, because we're not ready for it quite yet. Right? It's a little too high for us right now, because we're still going through purification. However, because we understand the real principle is service to Krishna, pleasing Krishna, not following rules or regulations, the real principle is serving Krishna, then sometimes we may relax the rules and regulations, right? So the Shitti Litti Vidhi, that he relaxed the plane of Vidhi Marg, and he gave, the gift of Radha Krishna Vrindavan, that mood of devotion. So because, there's this whole line of, in the Vedic world of, like, especially these smarta Brahmins, they're very fixed on this, like, regulated type of devotional practice. And often it's also motivated with some idea of personal gain, right? Like one of our sannyasis, he shared how he visited one village. He was preaching in Bengal, and he was there on Ekadashi one day in this village, and he was very impressed because like everyone went out at like 3 or 4 a.m. on Harinam, and there was a whole group of devotees. They went out like very early in the morning on Harinam in the village, and they're doing this very strict fasting and this whole thing. And that sannyasi from our mat, he mentioned, oh wow, I'm so impressed with your mood of devotion. You're following Ekadashi so strictly. And then they said, oh yeah, don't you know all the great things you can get from following this Ekadashi, You'll make more money and you'll do this and that. So they were following very, very nicely, but not with the mood of devotion to the Lord. So Saraswatī Ṭhākur, he made this point, like, why is it that we're following all these rules to serve Krishna? But if those rules are obstructing the service, then we may have to relax them, right? And so he, like, as an example, Ekadashi, right? The rule in scripture is actually to fast all day, no water, nothing, right? But that sometimes, if someone's doing that, then that, in most cases, then that kind of just incapacitates you, right? Then you're just laying in bed, fasting, can't do anything else. For most people, maybe Tushar he's a special case, he can fast all day and he's fine, no water. But most people, they can't do that, right? So Saraswatī Ṭhākur, he made this adjustment that we will fast until noon, right? And then we will follow anukalpa, like some simple prasadam, right? Because if we're fasting to the point of not being able to do service, then what's the point? Oh yeah, I can check the box, I fasted. But it's not about checking the box, right? It's about making Krishna happy, right? So Saraswatī Ṭhākur, he also emphasized this point, right? And then this last line of this verse is very, very beautiful. This Vilasatu Hridi Nityam Bhakti Siddhanta Vani. There's like a play on words here, right? Bhakti Siddhanta is the name of Saraswatī Ṭhākur, but it also means the conclusions of devotion, right? So, Vilasatu Hridi Nityam Bhakti Siddhanta Vani. May the teachings of Bhakti Siddhanta, or may the message of devotion, may that play within your heart eternally. Vilasatu hridi nit, within your heart, hridi. Vilasatu hridi nityam, eternally play within your heart. That vani, Bhakti Siddhanta Vani, that Vani is like message, words. May that divine message of Bhakti Siddhanta, may that play within your heart eternally. So, and this was the point that our Gurudev would make, that divine, that Bhakti Siddhanta Vani, right, that's still playing in this world, right? And that's like the beating of a drum. And that's still playing in this world. That's still uplifting all the souls of this world. That song that we sing, Hari Nama Sankirtane Nachuka Jagata Jane, right? Say, may this divine movement, vibration of Hari Sankirtan, may that continue to uplift all the souls of this world. And so our Gurudev, our Param Gurudev, they are all like, they are the bearers of that Bhakti Siddhanta Vani. Right? They're all continuing that divine vibration. And Saraswatī Ṭhākur, as we mentioned, he was a very great revolutionary. And as with any revolutionary, not everybody likes them. Can't understand what they're doing. It doesn't always make sense. Disturbing the status quo. So Saraswatī Ṭhākur, he was like a true revolutionary. He was seeing spiritual visionary, right? He's seeing what's necessary. We're not just, sometimes you got to put the book away and see what's actually necessary in the moment. Right? So like a general, like Śrīla Sridhar Maharaj, he made this nice analogy, like there's a difference between a soldier who's like going through training and they're like following the course book, right? And they have particular training practices they do every day. There's a difference between that and a soldier who's actually on the battlefield fighting a real war, right? And sometimes we may see that in different practitioners. There are practitioners who have that mood of just going by the book. And then there are practitioners who are actually seeing what is the living necessity, what in the moment, right? And there are these terms that are used sometimes, saragrahi and bharavahi. Saragrahi, some of you heard that. Saragrahi means essence drinker, who's taking the essence. So you sometimes hear this phrase, Saragrahi Vaishnav. A Vaishnava is like Paramahamsa, right? They're able to extract the spiritual essence, right? So then what's the opposite of that? Bharavahi. Bharavahi means means like load carrier. Like they're carrying the burden of external rules, regulations, not seeing what's necessary in the moment, right? So Saraswatī Ṭhākur, he was like this great general who's on the battlefield and seeing what's necessary in this moment, right? To continue with the movement of Krishna consciousness in a pure and dignified way. And so with that type of vision, he had to do some things that were different, right? That was shocking for some people, according to the necessity of time and place, right? So he gave Brahmin initiation to non-Brahmins, right? He instituted the sannyas order, right, into Mahaprabhu's movement, Mahaprabhu's line, because he's seeing, this is what's necessary, in this time and place, right? And many persons criticized him. Our Gurudev, he made this one comment, like when Saraswatī Ṭhākur was preaching in this world, many persons, they could not understand him. They criticized him. As we mentioned the other day, when Saraswatī Ṭhākur came to Vrindavan on one occasion, all the temples closed their doors to him, except for Radha Raman. The Radha Raman temple was friendly to him. And for that reason, we're very happy when we go to that temple, right? So this was Gurudev's comment, right? That when he was active in this world, nobody could understand him. But he said, but now now everybody glorifies him. Now everybody can understand. He knew what he was doing, right? And and how happy and proud are we, now the government of India, they've issued a postage stamp, right, in honor of Saraswatī Ṭhākur. The coin, they have the 200 rupee coin, and now everybody's celebrating Saraswatī. Now everybody gets it. Like, oh, he knew what he was doing, And Śrīla Maharaj, he mentioned that example of Napoleon Bonaparte, the general, right? He changed the rules, did things differently, and there was that complaint on the other side. Why are they winning all of a sudden? Oh, because there's this new general, and he doesn't know how to fight properly. Oh, he doesn't know how to fight properly, and he's winning the war. We're losing. That doesn't make sense. So Saraswatī Ṭhākur changed the rules, but he knew what he was doing, and he was successful in his mission. Right? So now everybody honors Śrīla Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, honors Saraswatī Ṭhākur, and honors his disciples. Like Śrīla Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada. All over the world he's honored. That's also part of the legacy of Śrīla Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Ṭhākur.
जय प्रभुपाद श्रील भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोस्वामी ठाकुर की जय जय विष्णुपाद श्रीमद् भक्ति रक्षक श्रील देव गोस्वामी महाराज की जय जय रे जय परमहंस महाशय श्री भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोस्वामी ठाकुर जय परम करुणा दीनहीन गतिर गति दीनहीन गतिर गति নীলাচলে হইলা উদয় নীলাচলে হইলা নীলাচলে হইলা শ্রী গৌর মন্ডলে আসি প্রেম ভক্তি পরকাশী জ্ঞান যোগ কর্ম চয় মূল্য তার কিছু নয় ভক্তির বিরোধী যদি হয় শ্রী গৌর মন্ডল ভূমি ভক্ত সঙ্গে পরিক্রমী সুকীর্তি স্থাপিলা মহাশয় অভিন্ন ব্রজমন্ডল গৌরভূমি প্রেমোজ্জ্বল প্রচার হইল বিশ্বময় কুলিয়াতে পাষণ্ডীরায় অত্যাচার কইল যারা তা সবার দোষ ক্ষমা করি প্রভু হে জগতে কইলে ঘোষণা তররিব সহিষ্ণু না হন কীর্তনীয় সদা হরি